Welcome to Better Relationships, Better Life, where relationships expert Judy K. Herman and her guests share insights that can help you move through conflicts in your 9-to-5 jobs and your 24/7 lives. Crack the clarity code and create deeper connections beyond the messiness of relationships. Here's your host, Judy K. Herman.
Much of what my guests and I discuss on this podcast can actually help your workplace relationships, improve your professional life, and create connection that brings a sense of belonging in your company. As a relationship therapist, executive coach, and inspirational speaker, I support organizations. If you'd like to know how I can help you change complaints into cooperation, get in touch with me at judyspeaker.com. You can also message me on LinkedIn, Judy K. Herman. Today, we're going to laugh with my mentor, Ken Davis, as we talk about side-splitting humor, success, and connection with imperfection in marriage and family. Let's listen in. Ken, thank you so much for being here. I was one of your students in your SCORE training for speakers a couple of years ago in 2019. So yes. You will enjoy, because Ken has some hilarious wisdom. And the reason we laugh is because there's so much that he says that we can relate to in all of our imperfections. And you have so much more. So let's get right into this, Ken. This is so neat. Thank you so much for being here as a guest. I'm so very honored.
Thank you. I'm honored to be on your show.
Well, for sure. We're gonna be talking about stage presence and because this is for entrepreneurial couples and business, and how presence and success actually changes your marriage dynamic. But first of all, Ken, let's talk about you a little bit and your beginnings, and let people get to know the real core Ken Davis underneath the laughter.
Well, I started out as a skinny little kid in high school, and I learned about bullying. That bullying started a lot earlier than what we think. And I discovered early that I could keep people from hurting me if I could make them laugh. Sometimes in the middle of their intent to hurt me, if I could make them laugh, they would stop. They might not say, "Hey, you're a funny guy, I like you," but they would stop. And then I got encouraged by a English teacher. I started to use the humor part of it to affirm my worth, to gain friends. And I was in an English class, and I made a very inappropriate comment about Shakespeare. The famous line in Shakespeare, out, damned spot.
I would have to go back and
It's about a blood spot on his toga.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I suggested a couple of other adjectives that might replace that. And
okay, we can only imagine. We can only
imagine.
imagine.
It was horrible. And I wasn't that kind of person, and my parents would have been astounded. But anyway, she made me stay after class. And after class, she corrected papers, and then she said to me, I can still see her as she capped her pen and leaned forward and said, "Kenneth Alpheus Davis, look at me." And that means disaster's coming. And then she said, "Son, God has given you a gift.
Wow.
You're using it to destroy my class, and that's going to change." And she made me go out for speech. She made me wait. My parents came to get me, because I think she had intended, if my attitude was wrong, to expel me. But and by the way, back then when parents came, they didn't bring lawyers. They brought weapons of mass destruction, basically. But she never told my parents, and I went out for speech, and it began a career that has lasted for 50 years.
That is amazing. What a seed of truth, and what a gift this teacher gave you. And you're describing a lot. Yes, bullying has been around for a long time, and every one of us, as human beings, we all learn as children, as adolescents, how to move toward pleasure and away from pain.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so you did have this gift, and then turned it around for good.
Yes.
Wow, that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Then for a long time, I have to say this too. I really have to say this. For a long time, that still was my sense of worth.
Mm-hmm.
And finally, I came to the point after years when I got all kinds of emails from people that I did it not for the pleasure of the standing ovation, but because I knew I was speaking into people's lives and helping people like you do.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that really made a lot of difference. Now you talk about transition, now I'm moving out of public and more to a private life, and I'm home more, and there's a lot to talk about.
Yes, I really want to capture a lot, because you are so right. We take those defense mechanisms that we learned in childhood that basically we needed to have in order to survive those painful places and the trauma that we go through as kids, and then taking them inadvertently into our adult relationships. So tell me about you and Diane, your beautiful and awesome wife of 53 years, you said?
53 years.
53 years.
Yeah.
Okay, 53 years. So you have a journey, and I'm so curious about it. So tell us, how did you meet Diane? Tell us some of that.
She was peeling potatoes. She and I were in college, and it was a college where we could work to help pay through college. And both of us worked in the food development department, and she was peeling potatoes. And at the time I have to say this, she wore glasses. I'm looking at your glasses. I love your glasses, by the way.
I hope they're not glaring.
That had wings.
Oh, yes.
Do you remember the wings? Yeah, in a strong wind.
In those movies.
Yeah. In a strong wind, her feet would leave the ground. But anyway, we were peeling potatoes, and her glasses fell off into the potato vat. And she asked me to reach for them. And so I reached in to get her glasses, and I looked at her eyes. And my wife has beautiful gray eyes. And she said, "Give me my glasses." And I said, "Only if you go out with me." And that was the beginning. So.
Oh my goodness. So was that an impulsive thing, or have you been like seeing her from a distance?
It was sort of impulsive. It was, I didn't know anything would come of it, but we got to know each other, and we married a couple of years after school. And
that's what I've got to ask it. I've got to ask a couple of questions here.
Yes.
So I'd imagine you were pretty funny then.
Yes.
Did she laugh at your jokes then?
Yes, she did, and she still does.
Well, that's what I was going to ask, because I'm imagining Diane at this stage, after 53 years of marriage, that she's probably heard a lot of these jokes over and over and over and over again. And so you're saying that she does still laugh at them?
Yes. And I think that's so that the people sitting around her will see that and laugh, and then they'll keep getting paid.
It's a business strategy, right?
That's right. Can you imagine if they looked at her and she was
Well, that's a quality of some sustainable marital super glue, probably, I would imagine.
And she does laugh and encourage me when something is tweaked a little bit and it tickles her funny bone, or a new piece that she really, really likes. She lets me know about that. She's very encouraging. She's very encouraging. I can't say about my career. She has been very encouraging. In this stage of my life, there are times, and I use a lot of comedy in my presentation.
Absolutely, yes. You can use them here too, by the way.
Yeah. There are times when I forget what I was talking about. Literally on stage, I've taken a little rabbit trail, and then I can't remember.
Well, let me ask you, Ken, is that in your later years, or has that been?
No, that's in the. These are the later years. Yes, that's in the later years, and so it works okay because I can ask the audience. They think it's part of the show,
Oh, and it's really not part of the show.
It's not part of the show. No.
learned to improvise.
I'm going to get help when I start asking the audience, what am I going to think about next? That's the hard question they can't answer, but they answer and they laugh. And so she's been very encouraging. She lets me know. She also lets me know where I can improve a little bit, where I might have sounded a little harsh. But she does that. I can't remember a time when she did that in a spirit that made me feel bad.
Well,
So
I want to hold that, because Ken, what this is like a dance, a relationship pattern between the two of you. And so when she's coming across and giving you some advice, you were ready to receive it. So I want to point this out to my folks that are watching, because I see a lot of people in my counseling and also my coaching. So that takes an attitude of you being receptive to her as well, right? Because she could be really nice and say and give you a critique that could help you, but you in turn then had to receive that and accept it.
Yeah,
like I think that's a remarkable quality, because that's a difference really between what John Gottman would say, the masters and the disasters. The disasters are going to be feeding those 4 horsemen, and those 4 horsemen would be accusation, defensiveness. Like you could have easily maybe, but anyway, I just want to point that out. I want to affirm you with that. Like, did you learn to do that? Like, was there early on where you did get defensive, or she did come across accusatory? I mean, how did you grow, or have you always had that in your marriage?
not in terms of her response to my performances. No.
Okay. In terms of other things, huh?
Yeah, in terms of shut the doors, for heaven's sakes, the cupboard doors. You know, I leave them open because I might want to go in there again. Or she said the other day, "Whose underwear is that?" And I said, "It better be mine." But anyway, she wants me to pick it up, and I don't always respond positively to that. I do not want to leave your audience with the impression that over 50 years there's just been singing and dancing.
So you've had some knockdown, drag out fights.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Yes.
And I'm learning as I deal with this struggle, and I've had an emotional struggle with the change that's happening in my life. Everything I did ended at COVID.
How about that?
Yes. Everything I did ended at COVID. And a lifestyle where I came home occasionally changed to where we were together 24/7.
Ooh, I want to hear more about that, because COVID really has changed so many of us. It's really changed all of us if we would just recognize it and open our eyes. Tell us more about that.
Well, what happened was I was in the process of wanting to retire. Again, we're talking about transition. I would still do some events, but I wanted my grandchildren to know me as more than that old man that traveled on airplanes.
Oh, wow.
I wanted to be able to spend time with Diane. I wanted to learn what date nights were like. I wanted to, and I wasn't always good about that transition, but COVID made it happen overnight. And I also learned that Diane, while I have been gone, became a very strong person. We were sitting on the couch here, by the way, and they were talking about COVID. There were we owned a home in Nashville, and there were tons of COVID cases there. So we came down to our vacation lake house, where Diane has wanted to live for some time, to quarantine. There were 2 cases in this county.
Okay.
So we came down here to quarantine. We were sitting on the couch, and the television said, "This is going to be so difficult for the older people." And both Diane and I looked at each other and went, "Isn't that sad?" And then we realized, we're 70. We are older people.
But when you're in their 70s, you're really not old. It's those people in their 90s, right? That are the old ones, right?
So another thing that happened was we were sitting on the couch here, and I looked out at the beautiful view of the lake that we have from here, and I said, "Someday I might be able to live here." And when I regained consciousness, she had sold a house in Franklin, and we now live down at the lake. So
Wow.
she had an opinion, and she expressed it, and we talked about it. And now we do live down here. And here's another beautiful thing about relationship. We lived within 15 minutes of all of our grandchildren, rarely saw them.
Wow.
Moved down to the lake. They are here all the time with their friends, with their, and their college. Some of them are college age, some of them are still in school. And
Wow.
they come down all the time, and it has really helped our relationship grow with them and with our daughters.
What a gift that COVID has been for your
has.
family. And so many people are discovering that. Like, that is amazing. You don't have to wait until you retire, but COVID made it happen where your kids, evidently your grandkids are like magnets to you and your wife. There must be something remarkable going on in that. I love it.
Yeah, they are. They're beautiful. All of my genes were passed on down to them.
What are the ages of your 5 grandchildren? You got 5 or 6?
I've got 6,
Okay.
22 down to 13.
Wow.
22,
Okay.
2 in college,
Okay.
2 in high school, and 1 in junior high.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. That is amazing. What a blessing that is. And so how has that, you being at home, you and Diane, just like when you normally would be traveling everywhere, tell us about the seasons of your marriage, Ken, when you were like traveling a lot or when you had young kids. Yeah. Share with us some of the things, maybe gems of wisdom or whatever. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I'm full of gems, but anyway,
of course you are.
The thing that I realized the most, I had to learn this lesson. When I went on the road, people took care of every detail. Okay. I would stand up and do something and people would applaud. And it took me years, I think, several years to realize that I shouldn't expect a standing ovation when I open the door and come home. I'm serious about that. I expect, instead, what I would get is, could you empty the garbage? And I had to learn to deal with that. The other thing I had to learn to deal with in that stage of life was to realize how much she did. I had 5 people that worked for me as I traveled the world. I had no idea what they did until they left.
Wow.
And I was amazed at what they did. I had no idea all of the things that Diane did and the leadership qualities that she had until I came home and stayed here. In fact, she had a hip replacement at one time, and I had to do everything. I'm ashamed to admit this. I didn't know how to run the dryer. I didn't know how to run the.
And you learned.
I learned. I had to learn
Good
quickly.
for you. Yeah. That's great.
And I told her she had to heal quickly, or I might not make it. But I learned all of that stuff, and as I was learning, what it did was give me an appreciation for her and what she did. We sat down to talk with our lawyer the other day, and I realized I have not, over the years, written a check, balanced them. She has done all of the financial stuff. So in preparation for whatever transition might come next, she has prepared a paper called Getting the House in Order that would help me if she went to see Jesus before I did. And I've done the same for her.
So you are describing, you and Diane over the years have had what you call a traditional marriage where you're out there, you're being seen, you have a team that takes care of all your needs, and she's at home keeping the home front. Yes. And then she's also been a part of the business too.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you're saying even as recent as going through COVID and moving to your lake house, that your eyes are more opened to
way more open.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Well, and that is a journey. Because I've discovered, like when you have kids, that really, I mean, for me as a mom, that really opened up my eyes to a lot of things. Like, how can I have so much love where'd this all come
Yes.
from?
Yeah.
So, how did raising kids change you, before kids, then having kids,
Mhm.
and now, you went through
Yeah.
empty nest and here you are,
Yeah. One of
grandfather.
the things, one of the things I had to learn from my children was that I'll put it this way, there is nothing that hurts relationships, whether it's a marriage relationship, a faith relationship, whatever it might be, a friendship, more than when one person in the relationship tries to perpetuate the perception of perfection.
Mm,
I wanted perfect kids.
Yeah, let me the perception of perfection.
Pretending that you're perfect.
Mm.
Just putting out there this idea that you don't make any mistakes, that and
let me hold that for a moment, Ken, because that does come up a lot. And I'm wondering if it does come up more with business owners, entrepreneurs, or people who do have a public image. And whether it does or doesn't, it's like, that's like, to have the perception of perfection, that really takes a person into a delusional zone of living.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
I'm telling you, you've been delusional. No, the reality is all of us. I mean, all of us have been delusional, right? I mean, we all have. So what's real, and how can we show up? So I just kind of wanted to flesh that out. I think that's a really good term. The perception of
perception, because it's
totally
not really
false.
Yeah. I tell people now, I'm a perfectionist. That doesn't mean that I'm perfect. It means that I'm miserable some of the time. It means that paintings that I've done, these paintings on the back are paintings that I've done of my grandchildren. There are paintings I have done that I have nobody's ever seen because there was some tiny flaw in them.
Oh my goodness.
So entrepreneurs who try to be perfect, I said this to a group of corporate people the other night. I said, learn to fail, learn to do it quickly, because nothing has ever been accomplished but what failure didn't lead to it. You have to try, then you fail, you learn from that, and you try again. Or as a perfectionist, you might never try. I think some marriages end early because one of the couples wasn't willing to try. I could be wrong about that, but I know that we've had struggles in our life. We've never come to the point where there might be divorce, but there has been the point where there might be homicide. So,
hey, you're talking to a therapist here. I might have to call somebody.
You have to call an expert now, right? I mean, you have to call the police. I'm a humorist, Judy.
I know. I'm trying to get out of my therapy head here. Four walls to my counseling office here.
So I need to tell you this. With my children helped me realize some things here. Because in front of them, I wanted to appear perfect. Because I wanted to create perfect children. And I didn't create perfect children. What I created was children who hid their imperfections from. So I think, I did a survey years and years ago when I was working with young people as to what they wanted most their parents to say. And of course, number one, seriously, was "I love you." They wanted that. Yes. I was totally surprised by one of the top three, which was they wanted their parents to say, "I'm sorry, I was wrong." Yes. And when I learned to do that with my children, when I apologized for raising my voice when it wasn't necessary, when I accused them of something that they didn't do, and I started saying to them, "I'm sorry for that. That was not right." What I discovered was suddenly I had children who realized that forgiveness was available. And so they were willing to come to me and said, I'm sorry. And they stopped lying.
Wow. That's really healing. That is so healing. There's so many people that even coming into counseling, they even have this perception of their parents as being quote unquote perfect, right? They're still like, they don't want to say anything. They want to just maintain that, yes, I was in a normal, healthy family. My parents never this or that. But I think it's part of our human journey, Ken, at least from even a grown child's point of view, to get to a point where you see, yeah, your parents are human beings and all human beings have struggles. And how can we show up and be real with each other? But what a gift you gave to them to be that authentic.
Yeah. Well, it was again, sometimes reality, it isn't necessarily a good heart that moves people in the right direction. It's reality.
Yes, absolutely.
You?
Reality. Life is going to happen. COVID happened.
Yeah,
You're
that's
home
right.
and you moved to the lake house.
Yeah.
That's life that we have no control over. And what a beautiful gift. But go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt there. I think
that's fine.
Yeah. So I'm curious. That is a tremendous gift because, and what I've discovered is whatever you're dealing with in the here and now, it's not just you. It's not just, it's never just the conflict that you're going through. Likely the reason we have our struggles is because we are unaware, and all of the genes and DNA that's been passed down from generations prior affects us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so therefore, I think, especially as a Christian woman, I feel like, wow, have grace for yourself.
Yes, absolutely. Your kids, and I've said this often, that there's nothing better than your children to know that forgiveness is available, because that, as a Christian man, that opens their hearts up to the idea that God is a forgiving, graceful God.
And loving.
Yeah.
Like we're born human. I do have a hard time with that. Like, just being born as a little sinner, being born. No, we're human beings and we have the capacity for good or evil. And, but they are a gift from God. And I love that. I love that. Yeah. Well, let me ask, Ken, because you've gone through your journey, and I think it's beautiful that I love it how you continue, like you don't like just arrive. I think a lot of people, they come to counseling, they think the therapist has it all together, or they see somebody on stage and they're telling, have a huge audience here. Oh, this person's got it all together. Why don't you speak to that, how that image of seeing another human being having it all together, I
think that's one of the most hurtful images that you can allow to happen on stage. In fact, I don't think I've ever thought of it this way before, but strong enough to say this, but that puts a blanket of shame on so many people that needs not be there. I often tell stories, and again, this isn't out of the goodness of my heart. I think it's because personal stories are funny, and someone defined humor this way, as a gentle way to acknowledge human frailty.
Yes.
And so me pointing out what it has happened in our lives and in my life and as I was growing up, people in the audience write, I've received tens of thousands of emails and letters from people going, I thought you had been in my home. I thought you had been there.
Yes.
That perfection thing is terrible. And I think that for those entrepreneurs who are on the stage, for those that stand in front of people, I mean, I've spoken to, I think it was 50,000 men at Promise Keepers in a stadium.
Wow.
And think of the grace and freedom you release if you say, not if you necessarily say, you don't empty your heart, you don't talk to them like you would talk to a therapist.
Right.
If you admit that I have made many mistakes in my life, if you make fun of some of those mistakes, if you have fun with them, then you release those people to be more honest in their own lives and to not be covered with that shame because they make mistakes, because they have done something wrong, but instead that they work, like I said, to correct that.
Yes. Ken, that sounds like therapy to me. You're doing what you're doing in your, stage presence and encouraging people and the joking and really like connecting with your imperfection. That goes a long way. How that to me, I think is remarkable for sure.
I'll be sending you an invoice. So.
Okay.
If I've helped you in some way.
Yes, definitely. You're helping me for sure. I have a couple of questions and I just got a minute here to like refresh my brain. Number one, I do, because you said it, you didn't say it here. I hope I'm not disclosing anything too personal about you, but you've said it in another way that you yourself like have a diagnosis of ADHD, right? Or you just have the symptoms of them. Yeah. Well, so back in episode 1 of this podcast, Melissa Orlov was one of my guests, and she is an expert when it comes to ADHD and marriage. So I'm curious, how has your ADHD, and this may get us way off. I don't know.
That's okay. No, it's okay.
Yeah. So I'm curious about your growth as a human being a husband, being a speaker, and even all of the maybe distractions you've gone through, your journey of the awareness and the ahas and the imperfections. How has that changed you as a human being? And then you can include the ADHD too.
Yeah. The ADHD, I want to speak to that because it was a very positive part of what I did for a career. That's why you take things like, because you're on stage and you think of something new and it's suddenly out there, and that becomes a piece that you use for years and years, because
that's where the impulsivity really can be useful. Right. It's not so much a disorder. It is a I appreciate you sharing that. You can use it as a gift.
Yeah. The other, but it also has a negative aspect in that my ADHD has caused my wife sometimes to go, listen to me. Mm-hmm. Because I can only concentrate on one thing at a time, but when I do, it holds my whole attention for maybe 2 seconds, and then I'm on to something else, and then on to something else. So I think I think it's been most helpful to me as I've realized it. I thought I had Alzheimer's. My father died of Alzheimer's. My sister died of Alzheimer's. And I thought I had Alzheimer's. So I went and took the test, and he gave me the test, and I forgot some of the things he told me to remember. And he said, there's 3 tests, but you don't have to go on to the others. And I love this guy. I'll tell you why I love him. He said, you don't have ADHD. I mean, you don't have Alzheimer's.
Alzheimer's. Okay. What a relief that must have been.
Yes. He said, you are off the charts ADHD, and you're an idiot. Yeah. He said, and you're an idiot. And the reason he said that is because when I came into his office, and this is part of ADHD, I came into his office and he was wearing that stethoscope, and I said, well, I like your necklace. Do you have another one? I just kept doing that, and I can't help it. Some people hate it.
Funny. Well, so I'm assuming you got an official diagnosis much later in your life when you've lived many, many years.
Yes.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. And all this time you've been overcompensating, whatever, but it's worked for you.
I didn't. I'm trying to think back through school. I think probably in school that was a problem. It was hard for me to concentrate enough to finish an assignment. Almost everything I try to accomplish is interrupted by something else.
Yes.
And one of the reasons I was afraid is I walk into rooms now, and this is part of aging too, and I go, let's see, I know I came in here for a reason. And then
we all can identify with that. Yes, we can.
And then I call Diane, and she says, what do you want? And I go, I forgot. And all of that is a symptom, by the way, of, particularly when you're older, how ADHD affects you.
Well, and moving out to the lake house and COVID has been a real blessing. I'm wondering if it's helped treat your ADHD.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know. I'm not any better. I'll tell you that.
But you are better knowing that you don't have Alzheimer's.
I am better knowing that. I am better knowing that.
That's great. That's great. I do want folks to know what you have to offer, but before we go, because we could keep on talking, I think it's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here, number one. But what would you share a piece of advice for a couple who has the traditional marriage like what you and Diane have? And of course, now, we're living in a different age, with technology and everything. And one of them is out there and the other one's in the back seat and not even being recognized. What kind of advice would you give to that couple?
I would say, for the person who's out there, and I know that advice better than the other, but I would say for the person who's out there to realize that the minute you open the door to your home, you are no longer a star. You are a servant, you are a husband, you are a lover, you are a parent, and that is the role you need to take. Mm-hmm. You're no longer a star. I found myself early in marriage and with my children being impatient with their actions or their attitude, not because they were doing anything wrong, but they weren't treating me like my fans treat me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I think that when you open the door, you change roles. And then once you're out the door, you can become a prima donna again. Although this is true, let me tell you, this is true too. People watching you have to see a humanity to you. I try to get to my presentations early, and sometimes I'll just go sit with some people in the front row and go, have you ever heard this guy? And I usually wouldn't walk across the street to see him. And they go, why? I say, well, because I'm him. And then we have this conversation and other people see that. And it's not a performance. It's a desire to get to know people. In the transition of my life, I'm realizing that I can use this gift in a restaurant. Not to stand up and perform, but to go over and make a couple of people smile at a table when I talk about how beautiful their family is and tell them a little bit about. Now, my grandchildren are mortified. They go, oh, don't. But that's part of what makes it thrilling for me. Here's a couple of tips I would give.
Okay.
We talked about forgetting to try and perpetuate the perfection of perception. When you're talking with your wife, when you're talking with your children, when you're talking with friends, see through the eyes that are looking at you.
That's powerful.
You have to think of where they are, what their standing is, not just how offended you are at the moment or whatever it might be, but try and see through their eyes and then communicate in that way. I'm an impatient person. That's part of ADHD, but I'm beginning to learn that if I just pause a second and think about what they're thinking, what they're going through, what my wife is thinking, that it makes a difference. It makes a big difference.
Absolutely. I want to tag onto that because what you're talking about, it is having empathy. It is being able to have an attitude of curiosity and getting out of your own head, which gives you some wisdom to be able to have that ability to see through the eyes of another. That's beautiful.
Another thing is, and this is just a short thing, learn the power of words. There are words that can be spoken in the heat of the moment that can destroy a relationship permanently. I've seen that in my extended family, and I can't speak about it because it's very private with them, but the resolution of that was an absolute miracle, but there were many, many years where that relationship was destroyed. And finally, look for the positive in people and reinforce it. I'll never forget. I can hardly wait to meet this woman again She's been gone for years, but I am going to see her again
Mm.
and throw my arms around her. A little teacher who capped her pen. And instead of saying, you nasty little boy, I'm excelling you, she said, God has given you a gift.
Wow.
And I want you to use it in the right way. So here's a way you can do that. She opened the door to something I might never have seen.
Wow. That is so profound. And yes, she gave you a remarkable gift. Likely at the time, she probably never had
knew.
an idea that it would influence as many people. That is so beautiful. So remaining positive, and words matter, like words, spoken words, written words, like texting, like sometimes people text out their fights, which is so not a good idea. And being
yes.
Do you have a joke?
My goodness. Don't solve issues on the internet, folks.
Yeah, don't do it.
Don't do it, because you can't see other people's eyes. You can't do any of the things we've talked about here when you're spewing out whatever it might be on the internet.
Yeah. And that's being in your reptile mode. That's a part of the brain that you're in your reptile mode. All you know is danger, safety, don't do it. Yeah. And another guest that I had in episodes 8 and 9, Dr. Stan Tech, and it's eye to eye, face to face, skin to skin. You need to have that eye contact. So, this is so wonderful. Thank you so much, Ken.
Thank you.
I want to put a plug in, because you have made a tremendous impact in my life. And in 2019, I did go to your SCORE training. And also, I'm telling you, I got this book. It's like marked up and tabbed. I've used it a lot. I'm telling you, I've used it a lot. And not only has it helped me get my own message out there and doing like little 5-minute, videos on Facebook and that kind of thing, but it's helped me interpersonally as my closest communication. Yeah. It's helped me talk with people who have ADHD too. Of course, I have it as well. And then also you're fully alive. My mom and I watched this recently, and it was hilarious, this thing here. And then of course your book is, I just want to kind of put a plug in there, because folks need to tap into your resources. Yeah. And I know you're going to have another training coming up.
I am. Yeah. Some of those things, it's interesting. Some of those things have sold out, and the publisher, bless their hearts, are refusing to reprint them.
Oh my goodness.
So we're working on getting them reprinted.
Okay.
I don't know. I just am blessed to be with you. This has been absolute fun.
How can folks get in touch with you?
KenDavis.com.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah, all of the contact information is there. Yeah.
Laughter is great medicine. Thank you for blessing us.
You're welcome.
All right. Bye-bye. I'm convinced laughter is the best medicine, and we all need lighthearted laughter in our lives. Ken's advice here definitely applies to workplace relationships. Here's what I wrote. Number 1, see through the eyes that are looking at you. See through the eyes of the other person. Number 2, learn the power of words. And number 3, look for the positive in people. What stood out to you? Share your takeaways by going to Better Relationships, Better Life. Next week, we'll talk with Eddie Caparucci, who shows us the path to overcoming relational blind spots, how to develop emotional awareness. Until then, feel free to share, subscribe, rate, and comment. See you next time for Better Relationships, Better Life.